Conversations that I have with people concerning things that are of interest to them, and particularly things that I have to say with regard to everything that matters to us. And so today we've chosen a particular topic, which is a conversation with Avery Hilditch on Does Religion Matter? So we don't know how this is going to go, but thanks very much for watching Things That Matter. So thanks for joining us, everybody, and I just need to ask Avery to turn down his computer because we can hear that coming through. So if you could do that, Avery, that would be helpful.
Done.
So, okay, thanks everybody for joining us on Things That Matter. Today's topic is, does religion matter? And here's Avery to talk about that, to answer the magical question, does religion really matter? How are you, Avery?
I'm good, and how are you today?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. It's good to have a chat.
Good. Yeah, it's always good to chat. I like talking, as you can tell, as you've learned over the years.
This is true.
Yeah.
So does religion matter or does it not matter?
Well, firstly, I have been an atheist since 1964 at least. So my answer might surprise you. Yes, religion does matter.
Right, I am surprised.
Yeah. Why?
Why does it matter? Well, because you've expressed your atheistic views for quite some time, and I just thought that being an atheist meant that religion was insignificant to you, I guess.
Well, no, it's not insignificant, and the reason it's not insignificant is because what people believe impacts the things that they do. It impacts their actions.
Yep. In what way?
Right. Well, we'll come to that.
All right.
But
okay.
I'd like to start with a question. Well, if you were to go downtown and you were to stop, we'll say 1,000 people, and ask them these questions, right? It's which holy book says that a rape victim should be put to death? Which holy book says that a gay man should be put to death? Which holy book says that a child who curses their parents must be put to death? That says that a woman can have no authority over a man, or says that a woman must cover her hair in public? Which religion do you think most of those people would answer?
Well, I know the answer to that question because they're all in the Bible, but I guess most people would tend to say the Muslim religion, which we Islam. Islam.
Yeah.
But we also know that that's not true of them as well.
Well, those 5 statements are all in the Quran. They're all in the Bible.
That's right.
Some of them are from the Old Testament. Some of them are from the New. But the thing is that if people believe that, say the thing about gays, for example, their belief that from the Bible, I'm going to focus on Christianity rather than on Islam and Hinduism, for example, even though I've read their holy books as well. Focus on Christianity because Christianity is the major religion in this country, right? People who think that the Bible is the literal word of an actually existing God, where it says in the Bible that gays are an abomination, act on that belief.
What do you mean? What do you mean people that act on? I don't know whether everybody acts on what the Bible tells them, though, that are Christians.
Well, they certainly don't, because the Bible tells them that they shouldn't eat shrimp, for example. But an awful lot of people eat shrimps.
There's lots of things in the Bible that people don't do, and I guess too it's about how you choose to interpret whatever it is said in the Bible, and I guess sometimes it's about interpreting that in terms of its historical context as well. Is it not?
Well, the problem there is that there is very little historical context in the Bible. A lot of people think it's a historically accurate document, and it's not.
No, I'm not talking about it historical in that way. I'm talking about the period in which it was written, and the values and the beliefs that people held at that particular time.
But the problem is that it's now 2000 it's now, since the first book of the Bible was written, it's now 2,500 years later. And there are people today that still believe things that are said in that book that was written 2,500 years ago.
Yes, but I guess my point is that not all Christians would agree with you on that.
And absolutely not. In the election, in the that plebiscite that we had about gay allowing same-sex marriage, an awful lot of Christians voted for it, and good on them. Right?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
what they were saying was,
so I guess sorry, Avery, but I guess what you're saying is that across the board, there's a variety of different views, different opinions in relation to the interpretation of the text of the Bible, or the Quran for that matter.
Yeah, or the Bhagavad Gita, or the Talmud is the same as the Old Testament.
Yeah. So back to our original question, which you dreamt up, I hasten to add, does religion matter then?
Yes, it does, because your beliefs inform your actions. So
that's right.
So we had a lot of people in that plebiscite that voted against treating people equally before the law because of their religious beliefs. Right? We have. You see examples in the mainly you hear about it coming from the United States, but that's a completely different thing there, where people, children die because the parents refuse to take them for medical treatment. They think that prayer will help their child, and it doesn't. Research from the University campus of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, at Georgetown University in the United States, from Johns Hopkins in the United States, they tested the efficacy of prayer, and it works at no better than chance. And if the people who are told that they are being prayed for, right, are believers, their chances of overcoming that disease are even worse than chance. You know, your beliefs.
Yeah, I think you need to. And look, I hear what you're saying, but you need to understand, I happen to have grown up as a Christian Scientist, so where the religion was based on prayer. So I understand that probably better than you do about the efficacy or not of prayer. But I think there's more to religions than just those one set of dogmas, though. There's a range of different beliefs that sit around how we interpret what it is that we believe we're getting from, whether it be the Bible, or whether it be Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy, or whether it be from the Book of Mormons, or whatever it might be. It is the way that we choose to interpret that stuff that enhances our lives. So do you believe that people's lives can be enhanced by what they understand to be from the Bible or from any other text that's religious?
I think that they believe that it can be enhanced, but I don't see any reason for that belief, if you know what I mean.
No, I think you might need to explain that, Avery.
Say that again?
I think you might need to explain that.
Yeah, I was just about to.
Good.
People believe that prayer works, right? Despite the fact that it doesn't. People believe that miracles happen, despite the fact there is no evidence whatsoever to verify a miraculous claim. They believe it, right? They believe that sort of thing makes their lives better. But there's nothing about religion compared to being to the secular world that is special, if you know what I mean.
But I think
I've been an atheist since 1964 at least, and I'm a happy person. But I'm told that I can't be happy because I don't have God. That's ridiculous.
Well, that's an erroneous belief. We know that.
Yeah.
That's as erroneous as any other stuff you've talked about. But I guess my issue is that is it possible to gather something from a religious belief, no matter what it is, that does look for you and for me? Perhaps it's a bit different because we've been able to define our lives, me in particular, separate from religion, given I had a very strong religious upbringing. But it doesn't mean that we haven't gained anything from that experience, though, that has helped us to better understand who we are, maybe, and to better understand humanity as well?
The best way to understand humanity is to look at how we've evolved, right? Something that many Christians will deny that we did. There's no doubt that religion, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Hinduism, particularly Christianity, has had a major impact on this world. Right? There's no doubt about that. It influences for centuries, it's influenced our music, our art, our writing. There's no doubt about that. There's things that I say today which come from Christianity. You know, expressions I might use. You know, something happens, I say, "Oh my God!" I'm not actually appealing to a God because I don't believe they exist. So there's no doubt that Christianity has had an impact on the lives of everybody that's either grown up with it, grown up as a Christian, or converted to Christianity, or that they're not Christians but they still use phrases that have come from Christianity.
So if we believe then that God is love, empathy, compassion, and and we call those things God-like, so we see God in that view, does that mean then that we are religious?
What it says to me when somebody says that God is love is that they haven't read the entire Bible.
Why would that be?
Right? Because if you read the entire Bible, the Old Testament is chock full of atrocities, genocide, rape, slavery, murders, ridiculous commands to do things that are completely amoral, or rather immoral, not amoral.
Yep, again, that's coming back to the context in which some of that stuff was written. But if you interpret,
Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
The Old Testament, in the Old Testament, God condones slavery. In the New Testament, Jesus does not say that thing I said a few hundred years ago about slavery. Forget that, I was wrong. He doesn't do that. What possible context, right, is owning another person as a piece of property, just like they were a table or a chair? In what context is that ever justified?
Well, it's never justified.
No.
So I don't understand your point.
My point is that you said it depends upon the context of the time.
Yeah, it also depends on the context of our time. So I think they need to be taken into. It's like, we can read something that, I don't know. Let me think of somebody. What's his name? The Indian Gandhi. So we could look at some stuff that Gandhi said, yet realise that in some ways he was a violent and abusive man, particularly towards women. So does that mean then that we dispense with all the great stuff that he did, the marches he went on and the way he liberated the country? Do we dispense with all of that stuff simply because at the end of the day he was an abusive man?
Of course not.
So isn't that the same thing about the Bible, though, that we can take the elements of it that fit with who we are today and what we choose to accept as being valuable, and dispense with the rest and still say that we are a Christian?
Well, okay, let's say you dispense with the slavery, which is endorsed by God in the Old Testament in Exodus 20.
Well, actually, It's not endorsed by God. It's endorsed by somebody's interpretation of what God is.
The believers say that the Bible is either written by or inspired by God. Right? So
we could argue on the inspirational front that anything that we think that is good is inspired by something else or somewhere else. I don't necessarily agree with that, but we could certainly make that argument. I think that I have an inspired idea, about setting up a child protection party or having you work with us or whatever is an inspired idea as far as I'm concerned. I could call that godlike if I wished, could I not?
You could.
I'm not saying it is. Well, because you yourself are godlike, Avery. What can I say?
God, that would have to be Thor or Loki or somebody like that. The point I was trying to make was that the Bible in Exodus 20 endorses slavery, right? If you were to take that, I've completely lost my train of thought now.
Well, I think the other issue is like Abraham having to slaughter his son. Now was that an inspired thing from God to suggest that he has those two alternatives? You do or you don't. And you know, what sort of decisions do we make as human beings as to whether to follow through on what we're told to do? I think that some of those things are like parables that are examples to us about how it is that we can conduct our lives. But that only fits if we have a set of values and beliefs that are noteworthy.
Yeah. I've remembered what I was going to say.
Good. Because this is your session, it isn't mine.
Yeah. As I say, the Bible endorses slavery. God told Abraham to kill his son, to test his faith or some other thing like that. I don't know what it was. Well, I do. It was to test his faith. The Bible is allegedly written by God or inspired by God, and people just take that. They don't question it. It's meant to be the literal word of an actually existing God, and we are supposed to follow that sort of thing. And if you take out most Christians will tell you now we've got a new covenant with God. That's what the New Testament is. And it doesn't matter about the Old Testament. But if it doesn't matter about the Old Testament, then you throw out the 10 Commandments, right? And I've got something else I can say about the 10 Commandments as well. If you throw out the Old Testament, then you've got no need for you don't have Adam and Eve. If you haven't got Adam and Eve, you've got no fall of man. If you've got no fall of Adam and Eve and no fall of man, you've got no need for the global genocide in Genesis 6 and 7, when God allegedly flooded the entire planet and killed everybody. Couldn't even thought of a better way.
I guess my point is.
Let me just finish this, please.
Yeah.
The last thing on that is if you've got no Adam and Eve and no fall of man, there's no need for Jesus, because Jesus allegedly came to earth to save us from our original sin, which was eating an apple after being persuaded by a talking snake.
Look, I'm not here to disagree with anything that you said around that. The only problem I have with it is that is a conservative view. You know, the range of views that there are in relation to the Bible are as, you know, from here to infinity, basically. So, but you know, I came from a religion which didn't believe that stuff either, but did believe in what I guess Christian scientists referred to as the inspired word of the Bible, which is again interpretation, and which was about one person's particular interpretation, I guess. But it still is about cherry picking the things that fit with you. But I think I can't agree with the idea that all Christians believe those things.
I didn't say all Christians.
Well, who were you talking about then?
I was talking about. I did say that an awful lot of Christians don't do the things that it says that they shouldn't do in the Bible. For example, I said the Bible tells you don't eat shrimp. Right? So it doesn't apply to all Christians. But
well, then who does your argument apply to?
Well, the conservative Christians, the evangelicals. We happen to have a prime minister who's a hand-waving evangelical Christian. Right? Mm-hmm. Scott Morrison is a member of the Hillsong community, and they are hand-waving Pentecostalists, believe that the Bible is the literal word of an actually existing God. Right? Beliefs impact your beliefs impact your actions. That's the whole point of what I was saying about why religion does matter, because people read something in the Bible, and not everybody, not every Christian, not every Muslim reading the Quran, not every Hindu reading the Bhagavad Gita, they will read a lot of them will read something and act on that,
right? Because they've read it
Yeah,
in the
but-
Bible, and the Bible.
And I think we have an,
Good.
and we certainly have an issue where those people are influential, I guess, and
Yeah.
we need to be wary of the decisions they make based on their interpretation of something which is, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
But it doesn't alter the fact, I think, that there are many people who don't do that. That don't do what Morrison would have done, that don't look for excuses that are backed up by an old book. That there are few thinkers who are religious, who make decisions that are based on their own best sense of their values and principles and beliefs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. One quick thing, I mentioned Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, who is a hand-waving Pentecostalist Christian. In that same-sex marriage vote that they had in Parliament, he abstained. Good on him. He didn't let his hard right religious viewpoint affect the outcome of what the majority of the people in this country had said that they wanted.
And I certainly agree. I certainly agree, Avery, that we should call out those people that are making decisions based on their version of God, as opposed to making decisions based on their sense of humanity. Because there's many issues. If everybody based their decisions on what the Bible said, as you said, all gay people would probably be all locked up. That women would be subservient to men on every occasion. Domestic violence would therefore run rampant throughout our community, as it almost does anyway.
We'd be selling our daughters for slavery.
Child abuse would be okay.
Yeah,
because children are the
according to the Bible, according to the Bible, it's okay to sell to kill your kids if they curse you.
Exactly. But those things. But I think it's fair to say then that there's been an evolving of ideas. We're now not living back in the 15th century where we're burning people at the stake because they have a different set of beliefs to us and we believe that they're the devil. So we're not doing that anymore. I mean, sometimes I think we come close, and I think there are some versions of religion that are that radical that's kind of what they still believe. But on the whole, in terms of Christian religions, generally speaking, I'm not suggesting it's all across the board, but generally speaking, we don't do that.
No,
Christians. I'm not saying I'm not a Christian, but I'm just saying that people don't do that.
A difference between Christianity and Islam is that Christianity has evolved. Once the secular world said that humans had evolved from other primates, all of a sudden Christianity agreed. Most Christianity, not the hard right, the evangelicals, but most Christians will now say, we humans evolved from other apes. They evolved with it. Islam didn't, right? When Copernicus suggested that the Earth revolved around the Sun, most Christians I'm not going to go along with that. But then Galileo proved it, and that things orbited around other planets. And the Earth orbits the Sun, and he explained retrograde motion of planets like Mars and Jupiter. The church changed, it evolved. It said, okay, that was right, so God had it wrong. The Earth isn't the center of the universe. Christianity is evolving, following a secular lead. There's nothing. People will say to you, Isaac Newton was a Christian, right? Well, actually, he was a Unitarian. They'll say Galileo was a Christian. Yeah, he was a Catholic. They'll point out Louis Pasteur, who came up with, was one of the people that led to the germ theory of disease, and say he was a Christian. True. The thing that's wrong with that is that they didn't go look into the Bible and say, or Louis Pasteur, for example, didn't open up the Bible and say, what can I use in there that will lead me to find out what the causes of diseases are. It did nothing like that. No scientific discovery has ever come from a holy book.
I don't think that matters too much, does it? Would we expect Will we expect it to be a medical journal, or I mean, I don't understand what you're talking about.
We shouldn't expect it to be a. We shouldn't expect it to be a historical journal. We shouldn't expect it to be a scientific source of science, because it's not. But people claim that it is, and their beliefs impact their actions.
Yeah, some people do. Agreed.
Yeah.
Some people do.
Yeah.
But we can't generalise
but
and say. Certainly not all people do.
Yeah, it's certainly not. I mean, I've said that several times. It doesn't apply to all Christians, but unfortunately, your average Christian, whatever you might like to call it, walking down
Is
Rundle
there
Mall,
an average Christian? Is there?
that's what I said. Whatever that might be,
Yeah.
they're not in positions of power, and the ones that are the Scott Morrisons of this world, they get into power. You get the Tony Abbotts, right? There's people with similar sorts of beliefs on the left of politics. They get into Parliament, and their beliefs impact their what they're going to do. So you'll get them refusing to spend money on some scientific project, right? When the scientific projects actually help the world. Not necessarily, I shouldn't say that always, because the Manhattan Project certainly didn't help the world. But scientific projects in general are towards the betterment of the world, and religion claims to be for the betterment of the world, but it doesn't actually promote things that do make the world better.
So well, I think that's another issue for debate. So what religion would be Julia Gillard, for example, or Albanese, or
Julia Gillard, I
or
believe, is
Rudd?
an atheist.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or
Don't know about Albanese.
Penny Wong. So these are
know.
people. These are people that we don't know. So if
Yeah.
we know their background in terms of their religious faith, does that either give us confidence in them or not?
If I know that somebody we'll say, is a member of the Hillsong community, I'm going to be sceptical of some of that person's decisions. I can't remember.
So if someone's a Roman Catholic, you wouldn't be sceptical of their beliefs or their decisions. I mean,
The Roman Catholic in recent years has demonstrated exactly why you should not trust a Roman Catholic in a position of power. All right.
all right. So you're saying
They have demonstrated that they would rather protect the church than protect the children. They've demonstrated that. So no, I wouldn't trust somebody who is proudly a Roman Catholic in a position of power. I'm not talking about, again, your average Roman Catholic. I'm talking about the ones in power.
All right. So if there was a Roman Catholic, well, let's take who have we got? We've got Robert Kennedy, or we've got his brother, elder brother, who was JFK, John Kennedy, who was they were Roman Catholics, and they certainly were in power. Does that mean we shouldn't have trusted them?
The difference between, say, John F. Kennedy and George W. Bush, right, is that John F. Kennedy, when he stepped into the Oval Office, he took his religious coat off and his religious cap off and hung them on the door outside, and he didn't let his religious beliefs impact his decisions. George W. Bush took his evangelical Christian hat into the White House with him, right?
All right, so it says.
I'd be much more likely to trust John F. Kennedy or Robert Kennedy than I would ever George W. Bush.
So, well, fortunately, we don't have to worry about George W. Bush anymore, but they do happen to have a maniac in charge of the place, and who appeals to the evangelicals. So when we're talking about does religion matter, and we're thinking about the impact the evangelicals have on who's president of the United States in particular, and I guess also to some extent who influences Australian politics as well. I guess we're not all that far removed from that potentially. So how do you see that sort of political scenario in relation to does religion matter?
Do you mean in the United States or just generally?
Well, I think anywhere. I think there are evangelicals here in Australia who are probably as radical and as firmly believed in the sort of stuff that you and I would find offensive, who would attempt to influence people in positions of power. You talk about Morrison and others. So do you think that it does play a part, and therefore does religion matter?
Well, as I've said quite a few times now, your beliefs impact your actions. So yes, I do believe that somebody in power, I'm not talking about Joe in the street or Joanne in the street, somebody in power, in Parliament, in state Parliament, federal Parliament, in the judiciary, right? I do believe that their religious beliefs impact the decisions that they make, right? And talk about people in political power, one of the things I would like to see would be an amendment to the Constitution along the lines of the First Amendment in the United States.
And, yep.
The First Amendment in the United States, one of them is freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech, that's right.
Which we've mostly got.
Freedom to congregate.
Freedom to congregate. And
freedom to protest, basically.
Freedom of protest. But one of the things that the First Amendment says is that no government will make any decision that endorses one particular religion over another. You've got freedom of religion in the United States, and although in the United States, in the Senate and in the House of Reps, they open the day with a prayer, that is going contrary to the Constitution, because that prayer is a Christian prayer. In Canada, they have freedom of religion. They open the Parliament every day with a Christian prayer. Why not a Hindu one? Right?
Well, we open our Parliament in Australia with a Christian prayer, though.
Why not an Aboriginal? Why not an
No, I'm not disputing it. I'm just telling you what the fact is, mate.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. And when somebody swears allegiance, is sworn in here, they can swear on the Bible or not. They can swear on the Quran or not. I affirm. But when people, one of the attitudes that you'll get is that if somebody affirms rather than swears on a holy book, well, you can't really trust them because they're not prepared to put their hand on the holy book.
All right. Well, I don't know. I don't know whether that's terribly the case. I've been to court a few times. I always swear. I say, "What the heck am I doing here?"
Yeah.
And I don't think that affects your credibility in terms of whether you're telling the truth or not. It's just an observation.
It affects your credibility in the minds of some people.
Well, I don't give a rat's ass about those people, really.
You would if you were charged with, say, murder, and they were on a jury.
Well, I'm kind of hoping that never happens to me, mate.
Yeah. Well, just don't kill anybody, and you'll be fine.
I'll be okay. So, Avery, do you want to do just a summary of where you stand on does religion matter before we conclude?
Yeah, my religion matters because your beliefs impact your actions. People will deny science because of their religious beliefs, because they've read something in the Bible. God is going to look after us, so we don't need to look after the environment. We don't need to care about climate change. We can cut down all the trees, right? It doesn't matter, because God will come back and he will sort things out for us. God will provide. People refuse, not everybody, I'm not talking about all believers by any stretch of the imagination, but because people believe that prayer works, they will refuse to take their kids for medical treatment, and their kids die. They'll not go for medical treatment for themselves, and they die. Right? They claim to. They believe that they have. Religions have hijacked morality. They claim to have morality because of God. What it says in the Ten Commandments, even though most Christians probably couldn't list all 10. They know the don't kill and don't steal,
most of the rest of them, they couldn't tell you what they were. But they claim to have the moral high ground, and yet there's nothing in religious morality. It's not a moral system. It's divine command. You do this because I said so. You know, do as I say, not as I do. The justice, if you go by what the things say in the Bible about how you should treat people, you know, in Islam, for example, women get stoned to death for adultery. Right? In Christianity, there are people that vote to prevent somebody getting married just because they happen to be gay. And what does that, you know, I don't see any issue with two loving adults in a consensual relationship getting married. Why should they not? But people, because of their beliefs, voted against it.
But there are a lot of Christians.
I thought I was summarising.
Oh, sorry. Summarise away.
Yeah. I was just going to say, some of the Christians voted, probably Muslims as well, no doubt, voted against it, and an awful lot, fortunately, voted in favour of it. Your beliefs impact your actions, and that is why I think that religion does matter. Personally, well, it's a fact that the fastest growing religious demographic on the planet is atheism. Right?
I wasn't aware that atheism was a religion.
It's not, but that's why I said religious and in air quotes, you know, quote religious, unquote. The fastest growing demographic is atheism. It's on the rise right across the world. The fastest growing religion is Islam. But as fast as Islam is growing, Christianity is shrinking right across the world.
Well,
I would like to see Islam do the same, and Hinduism do the same. And what did you say you were? Christian Scientist? I'd like to see that go as well. I'd like to see all of them go.
Believe me, they're almost gone anyway.
We don't need them.
Okay, and I guess there's some things that we will differ on. Is there not?
Oh yeah.
Yep. So that's a good thing. And we're gonna be holding a couple more of these discussions based on one I think was nuclear power. Was that right?
Nuclear power. Yeah.
And that'll be an interesting and lively debate because I sit on the other side of the fence to that. And the other one is climate change, for which I guess we're gonna agree more often than not on that one, unless we've seen Michael, what's his name?
Michael Moore.
Michael Moore's latest edition on human.
No, I haven't seen
that one. Worth looking at, and I suggest that before we have that discussion, we perhaps have another review of that one because that'll raise lots of issues about how the industry itself is being captured by vested interests. So, okay, Avery, thank you very much, mate. Lovely seeing you remotely, as it is, but we're all doing the right thing here. And we hope to be able to catch up probably next week or later on or some other time anyway to discuss all those important things on things that matter. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Avery.
Thanks. Bye.